Special thanks to Verve for sponsoring this video. Go to vrv.co/Billiam to get a 30-day free trial of Verve Premium. And stay tuned until the end of the video to find out what I'm watching.
The landscape of free-to-play online games in the early 2000s was wild. On one end of the spectrum, you had Neopets, which was monetized primarily through ads in the Church of Scientology, and at the other end, you had things like IMVU, which was primarily monetized through a digital marketplace and acquiring for affinity. Neat! The marketing behind these games was aggressive. I remember seeing Neopets ads all the time on TV, and I couldn't get through 2 pages on a website without seeing a creepy face IMVU ad. But in the center of it all was MapleStory.
What are you guys doing?
We're slapping each other in the face with a fish.
Why are you doing that?
Because we can. And it's free.
That's just like MapleStory.
Come join us at MapleStory.com for free.
I mean, I'd see an ad here and there, and all of a sudden the irate gamer has an imaginary friend who's a character from MapleStory, and I knew I had to try it.
The only problem is I grew up with this thing, the eMac. And although this thick boy introduced me to things like iMovie, it wasn't able to play games. Because I don't know if you've heard non-Apple people complain about Apple products, but they don't really play games. Except for Parachute. Game of the Year edition.
So despite all the pop-up ads, I never got to try MapleStory, but always stuck in the back of my head. I had no problem tracking down the actual game. The North American publisher Nexon still offers the game and all of its sequels and spin-offs for free on the website and a variety of app stores. However, installing and starting MapleStory was incredibly off-putting to me as a newcomer. Right from the get-go, there are dozens of servers and character classes to choose from, all of which make the game play differently. Luckily, I was able to track down a vanilla version of the game being hosted on a fan site, and it's as vanilla as Smash Bros with no items. MapleStory is a hybrid side-scroller MMORPG, which was initially published by Nexon and developed by Wiznet. The game was released in 2003 and came out of beta a few years later, which led to a huge spike in popularity. At its peak, MapleStory had over 92 million players. The game is actually split into a few separate games, technically varying differently depending on where you are in the world. The most popular are MapleStory Worldwide and MapleSea. In the early days, all of these servers were accessible to anyone. Players were only encouraged to play in the ones which accompanied their location. Eventually, a hard IP ban was implemented in MapleSea, which locked the game to only players in Southeast Asia. This left players worldwide locked out of their accounts. Characters were lost, items were stolen, and friendships were broken. Ever since then, the game has been managed by 2 separate branches of Nexon. Besides being in the format of a side-scroller, MapleStory is pretty standard MMO fare. It's just super cute as well. You make a character, perform a tutorial stage, and then perform quests which often have you killing enemies like snails, bigger snails, mushrooms, bigger mushrooms, pigs, and pigs with ribbons. With any given area, there are a variety of enemies with a wide range of difficulty to beat. However, often difficult or higher level enemies will be separated from others, so you can avoid the blue mushrooms of death and cosplay pigs, and instead go beat up stumps and slimes, which are significantly easier to kill. After a while, you get an opportunity to choose a job class: warrior, bowman, magician, thief, and pirate. Choosing your job class unlocks different abilities and weapons as well as access to exclusive quests. I chose thief, so now I get all these here ninja stars. I love it. The world of MapleStory has a lot of mushrooms. A lot of mushrooms. Originally, the game took place on Victoria Island, which has Lilith Harbor, a port city where you start the game post-tutorial, Hennessy, a forested area where the game's open market is, mini-game hubs, and more. And then there's Kerning City. It's a rundown city, along with some others that I'm too low of a level to reasonably get to. The game's world is really appealing to look at. Of course, I can't really get the full experience of the game without playing with others, but unfortunately not a lot of people want to play this with me. I feel like a lot of MMOs offer a lot of the same stuff, and it's really up to the world and characters to diversify games from each other. MapleStory's retro aesthetic is definitely appealing, and I wish I was able to spend more time with it. It's fun, but it has all the same tedious tendencies as playing any MMO alone.
That's right. Relax. You know what else? They're free.
That's just like MapleStory. They're Come join us at MapleStory.com for free.
While the mechanics of early MapleStory are much easier to navigate than new MapleStory, the reality of the game itself was much different because it was a much earlier internet. Even up until a few years ago, the MapleStory security system was incredibly easy to hack, with people exploiting the game's code for money so badly to the point where Nexon had to file multiple lawsuits against hackers. In the real early days, it was really common in the game for players to exchange login information for either favors or by sharing an account to level it up constantly. Zakum is a boss available to players level 50 and over. It's an incredibly difficult boss, and if you beat it, there's a chance it'll drop a Zakum helmet. It became really common for players to hand over their accounts to people to do Zakum runs, in which someone would beat the boss for you until the item was awarded. Now, sometimes people were legitimate about it, and other times they would drain your account of all valuable items and give it back to you, an empty husk of what it once was. Eventually, Nexon had to implement a PIN system along with your ID and heavily discouraged handing your account out to others. It may have also been a bannable offense. I say may have been because so much of MapleStory's history is reading speculation off of forums. And there was one high-profile instance of a famous MapleStory player being banned for either hacking, having more than one player on the account, or cursing out his girlfriend. I wish I knew the real story, but no one does. MapleStory has a leaderboard which shows off the highest level players. Back in the day of Homestar Runner and Chill, the players consistently on there were Sushi, Fangblade, and Tiger, who held the #1 spot for 3 years. Tiger became a bit of a legend within the MapleStory world. Being at the top of the leaderboard all the time made his username famous and began speculation into the account. This speculation only grew when the account was banned sometime in 2007. Going around the internet, it is impossible to nail down any confirmable details about Tiger, but a few points of speculation are consistent throughout posts of people claiming to have known the owners of the account. However, none of this is verifiable information and should be taken with a grain of salt. The first common piece of information is about the owner of the account, being somebody named Gavin, and another person who had access to the account being named Craig. Tiger was in a guild called My BFF with both Sushi and Fangblade, but apparently all of them were wary of Gavin, who was apparently very manipulative and toxic. Tiger's account was banned for either hacking the game, more than one person having access to the account, or from swearing at or threatening his girlfriend in the game. The speculation of this account and what happened to Tiger ranges anywhere from he was harassed off of the site to members of My BFF eventually distancing themselves from him and eventually him killing himself. Well, I think the speculation of what happened to or who is Tiger isn't any more interesting than any other internet mysteries. I think the level of speculation that came from it is. There are pages and pages of forums dedicated to Tiger speculation. It became so crazy that there is even a multi-chapter fanfiction about Tiger and his alleged girlfriend.
The idea of a famous username and a mysterious character is a trope that's been used in many TV shows and entertainment covering MMOs. And I feel like this trope is at least partly inspired about the rampant speculation behind who Tiger actually was and the story behind the account. Okay, I'm totally taking advantage of my reach here. If you have any confirmable details about Tiger or players who played with Tiger, please comment down below or contact me on social media. I would love help to bring this mystery to an end.
MapleStory never really faded into obscurity. The game has continued to update since it came out, and between its spin-offs and sequels, people who once played the game have an opportunity to revisit something familiar. However, returning to the actual game is a bit overwhelming. So much of the focus seems to be with whatever storyline the game wants those in your class to experience. This version of the game isn't for me. It doesn't even seem like it's for the people who once played MapleStory years ago. It's for those who played MapleStory in its glory days and have continued to play it ever since. It's not looking for new players, and that's okay. It can be for the hardcore fans because they're the ones who deserve it. However, with fan projects like the version of MapleStory I'm playing being the only way to access the vanilla game, I think it's important for Nexon to either quietly allow fan recreations to remain online or to provide an official version themselves. Within the world of game access and preservation, updates, provide a unique problem. When games are consistently updated with new and changed features, at some point it's no longer the same game. It's important to preserve and grant access to updated points in a game's history, because oftentimes the version of a game we remember is no longer available. Between MapleStory 2 coming out last year and MapleStory M a few years ago, MapleStory seems to be doing well enough to continue to be a brand. There's been games on the DS, a 25-episode anime series, and a Billiam video, so it seems to be doing okay.
It's so odd. I feel like most of my videos are glorified 10-minute autopsies followed by an ad read, but MapleStory seems to be alive and doing well, at least as a brand. So, good on them. That's fun. This video is sponsored by Verve. Head out to vrv.co/Billiam to get a 30-day free trial of Verve Premium. Verve is becoming one of my most used streaming platforms, with great content from creators like Rooster Teeth and channels like Nick Splat, Boomerang, and Crunchyroll. Verve has a great selection of curated ad-free content for you to watch. Verve is available on a wide variety of different streaming-enabled devices. And it has an offline sync feature which allows you to watch content on mobile devices while you're not connected to the internet. I use this all the time. Last time I spoke about Verve, I was watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I was about halfway done with part 1 and I just finished part 2. It's unapologetically absurd, and it totally embraces things about anime that many people considered awkward, like over-explanation, intense reaction, and muscles. I love it so much. So head out to vrv.co/Billiam to get a 30-day free trial of Verve Premium. Thank you again to Verve for sponsoring this video. Anyways, if this is your first video of mine, please consider subscribing as well as checking out some other videos on my channel. You can also follow me on social media. The links are in the description down below. Anyways, thank you for watching and I will see you soon.